3 years. 3 years of sitting across that conference table from Daniel Mercer and saying exactly what the work required, and spending every single meeting thinking something else entirely. Not once did I say it out loud. Not once did he. We were too precise for that, too professional, too aware of exactly what was at stake on both sides of that table. But here is what was really happening in that conference room. Every Monday at 8 a.m. when he walked in and the meeting started, I noticed the exact moment he registered I was already there. He never looked directly at me first. He looked at the room, then his papers, then me. Always in that order. Always with that half second before his expression settled into managing director. I noticed that on the third Monday. I never said anything. Every 11 p.m. email sent from his desk to mine, always about work, always genuinely about work, replied to in under 4 minutes because I was still at my desk, and the truth was, I had been waiting for it without admitting I was waiting. Every time he pushed back on my proposals in front of 12 people and made me sharper, and I hated that it made me sharper, and prepared harder because of it, and hated that too. 3 years of all of that. 3 years of saying exactly what needed to be said and thinking everything else. Until the night the Henderson account fell apart and we were the last 2 people in the building, and I finally stopped thinking and started talking. This is what I said. I started at Mercer and Lane on a Monday in September, 31st floor, Midtown Manhattan, floor-to-ceiling windows facing south toward the harbor. The kind of office that tells you immediately what kind of company this is. Serious, expensive, not interested in impressing you because it doesn't need to. My new boss introduced himself at 9 a.m. in the conference room. Daniel Mercer, 36 years old, managing director, dark brown hair, deep blue eyes that looked at you like they were reading something, a handshake that was firm without performing firmness. "Claire Ashworth," I said. "I know," he said. "I read your file." And that was it. No welcome speech, no tour. He handed me a brief on the Henderson account, 40 pages, dense, the kind of document that tells you everything about how someone thinks, and said he needed my read by Thursday. I had it on his desk by Tuesday morning. He appeared in my office doorway at 2 p.m. that afternoon. "You changed the risk model," he said. "The original one had a gap in the third-tier projections," I said. "I fixed it." He looked at the document in his hand for a moment. "It's better," he said. Then he left. I sat at my desk and thought, okay, this is going to be interesting. I had no idea. The Monday morning briefing started the second week. 8 a.m., conference room A. The whole senior team, 12 people around a table that could fit 14, and Daniel at the head, and me 3 seats down on his left, because that was where the VP of strategy sat, and that was what I was now. He ran meetings differently than anyone I had worked for. No agenda distributed in advance, no opening pleasantries. He walked in at 8 exactly, sat down, and said, "What are we solving today?" And the meeting began. He listened without taking notes. That was the first thing I noticed. Every other person in that room had a laptop open or a legal pad in front of him. Daniel had nothing. He just listened completely with his full attention, and at the end of each person's update, he asked exactly one question. One. Always the question that went to the center of whatever problem was being described. On my third Monday, he asked me about the Henderson projections. I gave him my analysis. He listened. Then he said, "What's the assumption you're least confident about?" The room was quiet. Everyone looked at me. I told him. He nodded. "Fix that first," he said, and moved on. After the meeting, his assistant caught me in the hallway. "He doesn't do that with everyone," she said quietly. "Do what?" I said. "Ask the real question," she said. I walked back to my office and sat at my desk and told myself that was just how he ran his team. I almost believed it. The 11 p.m. email started in October. Not every night. 3, sometimes 4 times a week. Always work, a question about a file, a thought on a proposal, something he had been turning over and wanted a second perspective on. I replied every time. Within 4 minutes, almost always, because I was still at my desk, and the emails were always genuinely interesting, and I told myself that was the only reason. One night in November, he sent a message at 11:40. The Callaway proposal, the section on market penetration. I think we're reading it wrong. Can you look at it tonight? I pulled up the file, read it again, then I typed back, "We're not reading it wrong. The client is writing it wrong. There's a difference. I'll have a rewrite on your desk by 7. 4 minutes later, "I'll be here at 6:30 if you want to walk through it before I see it on paper." I stared at that for a moment. 6:30 a.m. Before anyone else arrived, before the day started, and 12 people filled that conference room, and everything between us had its proper professional shape. 6:30, I typed back. I closed my laptop and sat in my apartment on the Upper West Side and thought about what 6:30 meant, and decided it meant nothing, except that we were both serious about the Callaway proposal. I was at the office at 6:15. He was already there. The coffee was already made when I arrived. He had made 2 cups, mine with oat milk, no sugar, something I had mentioned once in a meeting 5 weeks earlier in passing, and set one on the conference table at my usual seat, and sat at his end with his own. I stopped when I saw it, just for a second. Then I sat down and pulled up the proposal and said, "Page 14." And we were working before the city outside had fully woken up. We worked for an hour. It was the best hour of professional collaboration I had experienced in 11 years of working. He was faster than I expected and sharper than anyone I had ever sat across from. And when I pushed back on something, which I did, twice, firmly, he didn't fold and he didn't dig in. He thought about it, actually thought, and then either changed his position or explained precisely why he wasn't going to. At 7:20, his assistant arrived and looked through the glass at the two of us, and then very carefully looked somewhere else. At 7:30, he closed his copy of the proposal. "Good," he said. "Yes," I said. We looked at each other across the conference table in the early morning light. 6:30 tomorrow, he said. "I'll be here at 6:15, I said. Something moved across his face that he did not quite manage to keep entirely still. "I know," he said. The 6:15 mornings became a thing. Not every day, not even most days, but enough. Twice a week sometimes, once a week when things were busy, always the same. 2 cups of coffee already made, the conference room before anyone arrived, an hour of work that was always genuinely about work and always felt like something else running underneath it. We never talked about anything personal, not directly, but things came out anyway, the way they do when you spend enough time with someone in honest, focused work. I knew he had grown up in Boston, that he had run a half marathon 3 years ago on a dare and had been quietly furious about how much he had enjoyed it, that he read on his commute, always fiction, always something unexpected for a man who spent his days in financial projections. He knew I was from London originally, that I had been in New York 6 years and still found the subway mildly hostile. That I had a sister I called every Sunday, and a running habit I described as aggressive, and a problem with letting things go when I thought I was right. "You're always right," he said once, flatly, not a compliment, just a statement. "Not always," I said. "When have you been wrong?" he said. I thought about it. "I'll let you know," I said. He looked at me for a moment, then he looked back at the document in front of him, and I watched him look away and thought, this is the most careful I have ever been about anything, and the most aware I have ever been of being careful. The Henderson account took us to Chicago in February of the second year. 2 days. The Langham Hotel on Wacker Drive, client meetings back-to-back, dinner with the Henderson team on the first evening at Boca on Halsted Street. The dinner ran long. The client was in a good mood. Wine was opened and then opened again, and by 10:30 the room was warm and loud, and the evening had become something other than business. At 11 he caught my eye across the table. We left 15 minutes apart. Professional. Correct. I was at the hotel bar when he came in. I had not planned to be at the hotel bar. I had planned to go upstairs and review the morning brief. I was at the hotel bar anyway, with a glass of red wine and my laptop open to the morning brief, which I was not reading. He sat down beside me, not across, beside. "How did you think it went?" he said. "Well," I said, "Henderson is close." "Yes," he said. The bartender set something in front of him without being asked. He had apparently been here before. We sat in the quiet of the bar with Chicago outside the windows and the rest of the team upstairs, and all 12 people from the conference room on the 31st floor, 300 miles away. "Claire," he said. "Daniel," I said. He looked at me. I looked at him. "I was going to say something," he said. "I know," I said. "And," he said. I picked up my wine glass. "And I think you should say it," I said quietly. "Or one of us should, because 3 years is a long time to be thinking something and not saying it." He was very still for a moment. Then he reached over and closed my laptop. "3 years," he said. "You've been counting?" "4-minute email replies," I said. "So have you." He looked at me for a long moment in the Chicago bar light. Then he said it. He said, "I have been professionally scrupulous for 3 years." I said, "I know." "And I am going to continue to be professionally scrupulous," he said, "because that matters to me, and I think it matters to you." "It does," I said. "But I need you to know something." He was looking at me with those blue eyes that read things. "I need you to know that the 6:15 mornings and the 11 p.m. emails, and every time you push back in that conference room and you're right," he stopped. "It has not been nothing to me. None of it." The bar was very quiet around us. "It hasn't been nothing to me either," I said. He looked at me, I looked at him. Chicago went about its business outside the glass. "So what do we do?" he said. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I think we needed to stop pretending it was nothing first." He reached across and put his hand over mine on the bar. Just that. Just his hand over mine. And we sat like that in the Chicago bar with everything we had not said for 3 years finally said, and neither of us in a hurry to figure out what came next. We were professional at breakfast, impeccably, precisely professional. The Henderson team arrived at 8. We presented, we were sharp, we were a unified front in the way we had always been a unified front, and nobody in that room could have read anything in the space between us. But on the flight back to New York, he was in the seat beside me, not across an aisle, beside. And somewhere over Pennsylvania, he said without looking up from his reading, "I've been thinking about what you said." "Which part?" I said. "That we needed to stop pretending it was nothing first." He turned a page. "And then what?" "And then what?" I said. He looked up. "You're my VP of strategy," he said. "I'm your managing director. There are rules about this that exist for good reasons." "I know," I said. "And I don't know how to—" He stopped. "I don't know what the shape of this is, within those rules." I looked out the window at Pennsylvania below. "Neither do I said. "But I think we figure that out together, honestly, the way we do everything else." He was quiet for a moment. "Together," he said, like he was testing the word. "Yes," I said. He looked back at his book. I looked back out the window. And the plane carried us back to New York, and the 31st floor, and the conference room, and the Monday morning briefings where 12 people sat around a table, and 2 of them were finally honest about what they were really thinking. We were careful. For 3 months after Chicago, we were more careful than we had been before, which was saying something, because before Chicago, we had been exceptionally careful. No change in the conference room, no change in the Monday briefings, no change in the professional dynamic that had made us effective and that we were both genuinely invested in protecting. But the 6:15 mornings continued, and they were different now. Not in anything visible, not in anything anyone watching could have pointed to, but different in the way that things are different when 2 people have said the true thing and can't unsay it. He brought the coffee. I was always there first. One morning in April, I was at the window when he arrived, looking out at the city waking up 40 floors below, and he came and stood beside me instead of sitting at the table. We stood at the window for a moment without saying anything. My sister asked me last Sunday why I seemed different, I said. What did you tell her? He said. I told her work was going well, I said. He looked at me sideways. Is that what this is? He said. I looked out at the city. It's part of what this is, I said. He was quiet for a moment. Then he reached over and his hand found mine at the window. Warm, steady, the same certainty he brought to everything. I held on. We stood at the window with New York 40 floors below, and the coffee going slightly cold on the table, and everything between us finally having a shape, even if we didn't have a name for it yet. The Henderson account finally closed on a Thursday evening in May. The team celebrated. Drinks ordered to the conference room, the particular relief and noise of a long project finally done, everyone loud and happy and loosened from the tension of the past months. By 9:30, the team had filtered out, the caterers had cleared, the floor was quiet. I was at my desk finishing notes when I heard him in the doorway. You should go home, he said. 5 minutes, I said. He came in, sat in the chair across from my desk, not the conference table, my desk, 3 feet away, and looked at me. 3 years ago, he said, the first Monday, you had the Henderson brief on my desk by Tuesday morning. You gave me until Thursday, I said. I know, he said. Why Tuesday? I looked up. Because I read it Monday night, and I knew what needed to be done, and I didn't see the point in waiting until Thursday, I said. He looked at me for a long moment. That, he said quietly, that is what I was thinking about across that conference table. What? I said. That. He leaned forward slightly. The way you don't wait when you know. The way you just... He stopped. You don't perform thinking about it. You think, and then you move. I have never worked with anyone who does that the way you do. The office was very quiet. Daniel, I said. I know, he said. I know the rules. I know the shape of this. I know we have been careful. He looked at me steadily. I am asking you, not your VP of strategy, not the person across the conference table. I am asking you, what do you want? I looked at him across my desk. Then I stood up, came around the desk, stood in front of him. He looked up at me. I reached out and put my hand against his jaw, warm, deliberate, completely certain, and said, I have been thinking the same thing across that table for 3 years. I think it's time we stopped thinking and started doing something about it. He stood up, and in the quiet of my office on the 31st floor with New York outside the windows and the Henderson account finally closed and 3 years of careful professional distance behind us, he kissed me, slow, certain, like someone who has been thinking about doing exactly this for a very long time and has absolutely no intention of rushing now that he has the chance. We told HR on a Monday. Not because we had to. The company policy required disclosure, not permission, but because we had both agreed that doing it right mattered, that the professional thing we had built mattered, that the people on our team deserved not to find out through a rumor. Daniel's assistant cried slightly, which she denied. The team, when they eventually understood, managed to be both completely unsurprised and entirely delighted, which said something about how well we had thought we were hiding things. The conference room was the same. The Monday briefings were the same. 8 a.m. He walked in at 8 exactly, said, "What are we solving today?" The meeting began. I sat 3 seats down on his left, and when I pushed back on something, he listened and thought and either changed his position or explained precisely why he wasn't going to. That did not change. What changed was 6:15. What changed was that the coffee was made and the city was waking up 40 floors below, and instead of sitting at opposite ends of the table, we sat beside each other, and the work was the same quality, and the conversation was the same honesty. And sometimes we looked at each other in the early morning quiet of that conference room, and neither of us felt the need to look away. 3 years of across the table, and then beside. It turned out beside was better. Sunday morning, my apartment on the Upper West Side. He was reading at the kitchen table. Fiction, something unexpected. Always something unexpected. And I was on the phone with my sister in London, who was asking me again why I seemed different, and this time I told her. I heard her go quiet on the other end of the line. Then she said, "How long?" 3 years, I said. Claire, her voice doing the thing it did when she was trying to decide between laughing and being furious. 3 years? We were professional, I said. You were ridiculous, she said. Both of you. I looked at him at the kitchen table. He had looked up from his book. He had clearly heard enough, and he was looking at me with those blue eyes that read things. I held up one finger. Give me a moment. He went back to his book, the ghost of a smile at the corner of his mouth. He's there right now, isn't he? My sister said. Yes, I said. And he heard all of that? Most of it, I said. She laughed. Put him on. Absolutely not, I said. She laughed harder. I hung up and stood in my kitchen in the Sunday morning light and looked at him at my table with his book and his coffee and the particular ease of someone completely at home in a space that wasn't theirs yet and would be soon. My sister thinks we were ridiculous, I said. He turned a page. Your sister is right, he said. I crossed the kitchen and sat beside him. He didn't look up from his book, but his hand found mine on the table. 3 years across a conference table. And then, beside. It turned out beside was the whole point. It just took us a while to get there.